Hello, hello. Welcome to This Not That. I'm Alisa Connor and my co-host is Anka Herman. Good morning, Anka.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon.
We
Lovely
are
to be
your
here.
yes, it is afternoon/evening where you are. I always forget that. It's morning where I am. So good morning to those that are where I am and good day for the rest of you. We are your marketing mentors. I'm going to go with marketing mentors, and we give you sound marketing advice that you can put into action every single week. We show up here on Tuesdays at this time and this station. And this week we are talking about how to stand out during the busy holiday season. And we kind of laughed off camera because we're like, the busiest time of the year is all the time now. So we wanted to give you some actionable ways that you can stand out that don't make you appear salesy, slimy, or yucky. So, with that intro, we are talking a little bit about the holiday season this month and into next month. We want to give you some ideas about how to promote your business during the holiday season, even if you don't have a product. Because a lot of times, as coaches and online course creators and consultants, and even authors and speakers, you don't necessarily have, I guess authors wouldn't be in there, but you don't necessarily have a physical product. And so it can be a little bit harder to promote a service, but we want to make it easier for you. So, Anka, do you want to start us off, or do you have any ideas that you usually are your go to?
Yes. No, I think the first thing that I would, and it's, well, it's always, I mean, it doesn't really matter what season it is. So it's not something like holiday specific, although I think it matters more when there's more going on in the market, right? But I think it's being specific, right? It's, it's, it's being specific about who you help and what they will get from working with you. And I know that in the coaching space, that is like it's an endless discussion where it's like, yeah, you're selling the invisible. It's a different kind of animal from, hey, I want these shoes and I like those shoes and they fit or not, right? So making the visible is an extra step that you have to take if you sell a service, right? But at the end of the day, it's still the same. Who is it for and what does it give them? And make sure that what does it give them is something they actually want, right? Because the biggest problem I see is that especially coaches, service providers solve a problem that people don't want solved, that
I
isn't
agree.
important enough, right? So I think
Yep.
if you if you can do anything to stand out in a busy market or in a busy season, it's to get super specific about what people will get from working with you. Because otherwise, they just won't stop scrolling.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, like nobody wants coaching. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to buy coaching. And I'm sorry, Pumpkinhead, if that hurts your feelings. But the reality is people don't buy stuff just to buy it. And what I run into is that like people get so caught up in their services, like it's 5 1-hour coaching calls or it's 3 sessions with
Worksheets.
me one on one or whatever it is. And nobody wants that. What they want is this pain that is in their neck to go away. And so in our businesses, which are very parallel, that would be more often than not, I want more customers. I want more customers. And if you dig deeper, it's what I want more customers because I need more money. I need more money because I need to pay bills. I need to hire someone. I need to grow my business, all of those things. But you have to keep saying why when you're creating your marketing. And that's it aligns with your business plan, but it's very different than your business plan. And that's one of the things that I had somebody comment yesterday. I put a poll out about things that people wanted to learn. And there was actually a business coach who commented on it. And she said, you've got to have a business plan and then a marketing plan. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And sometimes those are intertwined as though they're the same thing, and they are not. Your business plan is how you're moving forward with your business, and your marketing plan is how you're bringing people into the business to get to know about you and get to know about how you can help them solve their problems. So I love that you mentioned specificity, because that is, I think so many people struggle with this. And I would love, like, do you want to dive into some ways that people can get really specific? Because I find when I work with people, there is so much resistance to this. Like, they don't want to almost every coach that I talk to is like, I help everyone. I'm like,
Yeah.
then you will help no one. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Because everyone
I
helps
mean,
everyone.
the thing is, like, I have all the compassion in the world for that because I've been there, like, and especially if you're multi-passionate, if you're creative, and if you've done some kind of, like, let's call it sort of transformational coaching training, where you've seen something, you've had an insight that goes beyond all those little day-to-day problems, and you've seen something deeper than that, and you know that the real answer is down there. So that's really what you want to talk about. So I get all that, right? So I don't like, it's like there's no judgment with it. I think we've all been there, so it's fine. But it just means that if you talk about that level of abstraction, nobody can hear you. That's the problem, and it doesn't mean that you can't serve somebody else. Right? Say, I can do whatever. I can go and make a flamenco dress if somebody comes along and wants one, if I feel like doing it, right? But it doesn't mean I will talk about that in my marketing, because that's not the main, and it's not a life sentence either. All it is, it's about building that bridge between what you want to offer and what people want help with. It's your job to build that bridge. Right? And if you waffle on about, oh, I just want to help people tap into who they really are, it's like nobody gets up in the morning and says, I wonder who can help me tap into who I really am today. Right? No. You think, I wish I found a way to get the kids to school without feeling exhausted by the time I come home. Right? So, or I wish I had energy to do some exercise because I know I spend too much time at the desk. Like, that's stuff that goes through people's heads. And I think you want to, even though you kind of know that that's not the real problem, but that's not helping you. And I've done that, right? I talk about what I know the problem is, but if people don't think that that's the problem, they just like don't hear you. Right? Yeah. So you need to speak to what's going on in people's minds. And in order to know that, you need to really speak to them.
Exactly. Well, and you need to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the one thing that most people avoid because it makes you vulnerable, is having those conversations so you can find out what that thing is. Because instead of just going out and randomly creating marketing, I've had people come to me and they're like, yeah, I need really clear messaging. I'm like, well, who are you writing your messaging for? And they're like, oh, everyone that needs this. I'm like, nobody needs this. And they get really frustrated because it's so broad that you're absolutely right. The more broad you are, the less likely you're going to get traction. And then the next thing that I see people do is they try to get cute or clever with their language.
Yeah.
And one of my marketing gurus or marketing heroes is Donald Miller. And one of the famous things that he says that it was just so brilliant, I always borrow it, is that if you confuse, you lose. And it's so true, because if you're confusing people with your wit, your humor, and they don't get you, they're just rolling right by. Like, they are not going to buy from you. They're not going to spend their time trying to dissect whatever the heck it is you're trying to say. And the more clear we can be, the easier we make it to read, the better off we're going to be when we're trying to sell. And I feel like a lot of times when people create their marketing plan, they want to share a novel about all the things that can happen if they buy from them. People don't read that. Like, I get asked all the time for marketing emails, how long should it be? I'm like, as long as it takes to get the point across. And people don't like that answer. And I'm like, it can be 6 sentences, it can be 6 paragraphs, it could be 6 pages. It just depends on what you're talking about and how easily that flows for them to read it. Because if you're writing a 6-page email going through every single detail of what you're offering in your coaching program, nobody's reading that. Nobody's reading it. Nobody has time to read that. It's like
that's the thing. I think the question is really answerable. Like, how is this relevant to people? Is this relevant and interesting to people? Because if it's relevant and interesting, they're going to read it, right? So there's nothing, it's not that shorter is necessarily better. It's also a lot more difficult to do a good job when it's short, right? So, but it's got to be interesting and relevant to people. And not just because you want to shove it down their throat, because you know that that's what they need. If they don't think they need it, they're not going to give you the time of day. Right. And I think that specificity, I remember, I do get it. Like I had a lot of resistance to that. That's the thing, you're multi-passionate creative souls. You don't want to be kind of boxed into this one thing. And then I had Matt Johnson on my podcast, the author of Micro Famous, right? And he said something to me that always stuck with me. He says, scratch your creative itch by going deep. So he says you want to solve one problem for one type of person. And then the more you get into the depth of your topic, you're never gonna, oh, that's true, right? I remember having a conversation with a friend, and we discovered that we're both into sewing, right? And he started out making wedding dresses, and I made flamenco costumes, and I'm like, I have no idea. And next thing you know, we geeking out on buttonhole techniques, right? So it's like, if you're in a topic, you're not going to get bored. You're not going to run out of things to say because you can go really deep with that. And that really goes like, oh, that took all the awkwardness off of that. Like, oh yeah, that's so true. The further you get into something, the more things open up, and there's always something more to discover in the depth of your topic. So it doesn't get boring, but people can actually hear you and people can refer you. The moment you talk about what it is you do and someone goes, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, you're onto something. If people go like, what? You're too broad. And it's easy to test. You just try it out in a networking anywhere, or chat to somebody at the bus stop and you see if their eyes glaze over, you've got work to do, right?
Exactly. And your people, that's the last point I kind of want to make on this topic is the people that are meant to find you when you're clear and you are concise about what you have to offer them will find you. And you don't have to worry about, like you said, if you're at the bus stop, because sometimes I talk to people outside of my, outside of the industry or outside of small business or entrepreneurs or coaching. And they just look at me like deer in the headlights because they're in corporate. And we forget there's this giant world out there of people that are not entrepreneurs, that don't own their own business. And so when you start talking businessy, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, there's a department for that. I don't need to know that. And so just know that your people will find you if you are clear, if you are concise, and you give them a path to follow. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, and I think it's also, if you want to do anything, start building those relationships with potential customers, with people who might be able to refer you to other people. Start now so you're ready to promote next year in the holiday seasons, because relationships don't get built overnight. So, there is no sort of, magic quick fix.
That's absolutely right. People are people, and it takes time to get to build relationships. Well, thank you all for tuning in and watching today's This Not That. We hope that you have some takeaways that you can implement into your holiday marketing and your everyday marketing for that matter. If you have questions or you have things that you want us to talk about on the show, please leave them in the comments. We will review them and definitely take them into consideration for a future episode. In the meantime, we will see you next week. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
Have a lovely week.